Folks, welcome back to another episode of Mayhem in the Midsouth. Our episode today, Death by Hiking. Now the suspect we're going to be looking at operated in 2007-2008. Now I give those years out because we're only going to primarily cover the 4 known homicides that the suspect was responsible for. These 4 homicides occurred in 3 states: North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. Now this suspect targeted hikers either in national forest or national parks, state parks, out in the woods on the trail. There are several other homicides, that missing persons, that is a possibility this suspect had a hand in. The 4 victims we're going to be talking about are John and Irene Bryant, Cheryl Dunlap, and Meredith Emerson. Now we're going to see the Emerson lady, even though her murder was the last of the 4, it's actually the one that broke open the other 2 cases. It's October 21st, 2007. John and Irene Bryant, now they're in their 80s. They're in the Pisgah National Forest, their favorite little, evidently hiking spot. Parked their car that day on Yellow Gap Road. Now that's near U.S. Route 276, less than a mile from that U.S. highway. Now that October 21st was also the last time either one of them would ever be seen alive again. Now first, no one really just took a lot of notice. Their son lived in another county. The neighbors noticed that the Bryant's mail was piling up and newspapers piling up on the driveway. Now they got a hold of the son. The son called the police. So the Henderson County Sheriff's Office, they take the report and they start searching. Cadaver dogs, helicopter, all the search volunteers they can find. Now part of this investigation, they pull the cell phone records for the couple. Now it was noted that on the day they disappeared, that Miss Bryant had attempted a 911 call. But no, this area is heavily forested, obviously, and you've got all these valleys and peaks, so the call dropped. Now, near as they could figure from the call location there, they were guessing it was just a few miles away from where the car was, but they weren't really for sure. Now, on November 10th, 2007, so just a few weeks later, they find the body of a woman on Barnett Branch Trail. It's covered with leaves. So now they sent the body to the medical examiner's office, and it was positively identified as Miss Bryant. Cause of death was blunt force trauma. But now we got a homicide that's occurred on federal property, so the FBI is in charge of the investigation. Now they get to looking further, and they see that the bank card belonging to the Bryants had been used to withdraw $300 from an ATM machine in Ducktown, Tennessee. Now that's only about an hour or so drive away from where this event had occurred. Now they checked the surveillance video for that ATM, and it shows an older male white, a yellow rain jacket, and they got the hood pulled up over the face so you can't identify him. Now obviously Mr. Bryant's still out there somewhere, so now authorities are theorizing that the suspect took Mr. Bryant with him in order to get money out of his account. And of course they're figuring there's probably going to be a bad ending to this. Miss Bryant's dead. They can't find Mr. Bryant. Now, February 3rd, 2008, so about 2 months later, a local hunter, he's in National Forest there, Nantahala National Forest, and he's on a service road the Park Service uses. It's called, it's known as the Switchbacks. He finds bones scattered about the area. They send the bones off for identification purposes, and a few days later they determine that it is Mr. Bryant, and they rule cause of death as a gunshot wound to the head. So now we got double homicide, but other than that video, they don't have much to go on. So this case is looking like it may not go anywhere unless they get a break. Now, according to the Florida Appellate Court, Miss Dunlap was last seen alive on December 1st, 2007. She called a friend. They were going to go have dinner that evening. Now, that afternoon, Miss Dunlap, she goes to an area known as the Apalachicola Wildlife Management Area, and in particular that road there, Leon Sinks Road. Now it runs off Crawfordville Road. There's a parking area, and she was gonna go find her a nice spot and sit down and read a book. Now she's seen by a couple about 1:30 that evening. And they're able to verify that, at least at that time, she was still alive. They described what she was wearing, mentioned that she was carrying a hardback book. But now that night, she didn't show up for dinner. So now friends start checking up to see if they can figure out where she's at. Well, they go to her house, and her dog's there, but she's not, and her car's not in the driveway. So they call the police. So December 3rd, 2007, they take a missing person report. Now, Miss Dunlap's white Toyota Camry is found that same day on the side of Crawfordville Highway, pushed into the woods. Now, there were deliberate tire punctures in the sidewall, and through their examination, they're determining that it's either got to be a very large, heavy-bladed knife or bayonet type instrument that punctured the tires. Now, the same day that Miss Dunlap disappeared, the highway patrol trooper had, he would later testify that from his initial investigation of the scene around the car, that the vehicle had been driven into the woods and that the tire had been punctured. Now, Miss Dunlap's purse was found, but there was no money. Now, they start looking at bank records, and they see that the day she disappeared, she had went through the drive-through teller. Bank records showed that she had cashed a check at the drive-through teller about 11:17 a.m. Now, the authorities discovered that there had been 3 cash withdrawals at the Hancock Bank, West Tennessee Street up in Tallahassee. Those withdrawals were on December 2nd, 3rd, and the 4th, 2007. So the 3 days following her disappearance. Now, they pulled the security video from the bank, and the person that's making these withdrawals, he's wearing a blue and white patterned long sleeve shirt, glasses, a hat, and he's got a mask made of what looks like duct tape. Now, 14 days later, December 15th, 2007, a hunter's out in Apalachicola National Forest, and he finds a body there near a forest road. The body had been covered with brush and limb. Now, there had been some dismemberment to the body. Medical examiner said that This dismemberment had occurred post-mortem, so after death. Cause of death could not be determined, but the medical examiner did say that in all likelihood it was a violent homicide. I would say that's a pretty good conclusion. Now, he also noted that middle to lower back area of the victim there was bruising that he said would not be normally associated with a fall. Now, I think later on we're going to see that the suspect had a police baton that he used. That would be my guess as to where that bruising came from. He used that to temporarily disable the victim. Now, the best medical examiner could say was that the victim's body had been in the woods for 7 to 15 days. And the best he could come up with, the victim had died sometime between December 5th and December 8th. Well, obviously, she disappeared on December the 1st, so possibility the suspect had kept her alive for a while. Now, about a month later, they found remains from the victim in a fire pit at a campsite about 7 miles from where the body had been found. Now, those bone fragments were examined. All they could say was the bones came from an adult who had small hands. Witness on December the 1st, the day the victim disappeared, saw the suspect, this male white, on Crawfordville Highway, and he wasn't too far away from Leon Sinks Road there, in the parking area where the victim had disappeared from. She said she saw this fella, and he was rummaging through a white Camry on the side of the road, which, as it turned out, was the victim's car. Now, you just got to pass some more witnesses that saw this same male, this suspect, before and after the disappearance of the victim in this same area of the park. And finally, we have the case that's going to lead to the solving of the 3 previous murders. Meredith Emerson. Now, it's New Year's Day 2008. Now, she's going to walk along Freeman Trail there on Blood Mountain. Now, that's in Vogel State Park. And she's got her lab with her. So she's out there in the woods following the trail to get up there on the mountains to look around. Now, according to several witnesses, they said they remember Miss Emerson and her black lab. They also remember there was some sinister-looking old white guy that had a dog, and he seemed to be following the victim. Now, the victim would disappear that day. Now, 2 days later, authorities find her Chevrolet Cavalier, and they found her water bottle and a dog leash and a police baton a few days after her disappearance. Now, she was found in Dawson Forest. Now, that's a large tract of government land near Dawsonville. That's in the north part of, or actually just a little north of the Forsyth County line. Now, that park is near Cumming gas station, the town of Cumming, there in Georgia. And that town's going to become very important. Now, the police start getting into this description information they're getting about this fella, and they're saying he's a local drifter. And they've got a good many witnesses that saw him in the area, were familiar with him. In fact, they even knew his dog's name. So the authorities, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, they go on and they put that out because they find out his name and they put his picture out there and they say, hey, we want to talk to this fella. Now, the day after the announcement, right around January 5th, they locate Miss Emerson's dog. Now, it's found wandering around in a Kroger parking lot in Cumming. Now, just a day or so after they found the victim's dog, police get a call from a fella at a convenience store there in Cumming, Georgia. And he said that fella y'all are looking for, he's got him a white van pulled up next to a dumpster, and he's cleaning it out, and y'all better hurry. So now the police get there, and they detain the suspect. Now in that dumpster, they find a victim's bloodied clothing, her wallet, driver's license, and part of a blood-stained car seat belt. The Georgia police sit down with him, and he tells them where he hid that bayonet. He hid it on that trail there on Blood Mountain. And they end up cutting a deal with him. They said, look, we won't ask for the death penalty, but you got to tell us where Miss Emerson's at. So he gives them the whole story. Now they recover the bayonet as well. And they had a tool mark expert would later testify in Miss Dunlap's trial that it appeared that this large knife, this bayonet, most probably committed to puncture marks in Miss Dunlap's tire. Now, according to the suspect, when he first encountered Miss Emerson, and he did his classic blitz attack, she fought back. And according to the suspect, she had the upper hand on him there, and it looked like it was going to go bad. But she stumbled, fell, and that's when he was able to overwhelm her. So now he gives them directions, and they go out, and they find Miss Emerson's body. The medical examiner would say that it appeared she'd been alive for several days prior to her death, which that's the suspect admitted as much in his confession. In fact, he held her, I think it was for 3 days, and he killed her on the 4th day after he kidnapped her. Now, her cause of death was blunt force trauma. Her body was partially dismembered as well. Now, the great state of Georgia, he got life, no parole. Obviously, due to the plea deal in order to find the victim's body. He went to trial in North Carolina. He confessed to the murder of Mr. and Miss Bryant. He got life, no parole there. Now, the great state of Florida, they didn't have to cut a deal with him. Jury found him guilty and he was sentenced to death. Appellate court eventually overturned part of that, went back down. The judge said, "Now, I think the death penalty is just about right." So he's sitting on death row.